It all started back in high school. I used to have pain in my legs, in my feet, my ankles. And I thought, no, it's just from playing sports. Maybe I rolled my ankle, or maybe I tweaked it, or maybe I sprained it in some way. I even went to a doctor, and the doctor told me I had a hairline fracture in my foot. It wasn't until I was in my late 20s that I was diagnosed with chronic gout. And for those of you that don't know what gout is, it's an inflammation of uric acid in your joints, which could be extremely painful. My ankles used to swell up to the size of softballs. I used to get 3 to 4 gout attacks a month, sometimes 2 if I was lucky. I couldn't walk. Sometimes I couldn't even get up to use the restroom at night. In 2016, I was on a road tour for a trade show. One night in Utah, I just couldn't bear the pain. I had to get driven to the local emergency room where I was administered Dilaudid. Now, I've taken just about every pain med in the book. They've given me Percocets, they've given me Valium, they've given me... None of it worked. And for the gout, I was taking indomethacin and allopurinol, colchicine. Eventually, none of it worked. I was still getting chronic gout attacks. I even changed my diet. One night, a friend of mine introduced me to medicinal marijuana. Now, I can't smoke marijuana. When I do, it makes my throat swell up, it gets inflamed, and I barely breathe, let alone talk. So I knew smoking it wasn't an option for me. When I took the medicinal marijuana in an edible form, that night, my whole life changed. I mean, it's like I knew the pain was there, but it didn't bother me. I could get up and walk around. It worked for me. So I wanted to find out more about it. Why did it work? That's when I found out about something called CBD. Upon taking CBD on a daily, then to a weekly basis, I noticed that gout attacks happened less frequently. Now, I did other things like change my diet further, lost about 120 pounds, sure. But I did know that CBD and medicinal marijuana had something to do with it. So I wanted to find out more about it. I sat down with the physician. He gave me the medical aspect. Sat down with friends. They gave me their stories. Now, here's the funny thing with those is that, although helpful, from a medical aspect, there are opinions. Hearing stories from your friends, not everyone has the same symptoms or the same issues as you. So I wanted to find facts. And what better way to find facts than from a laboratory and speaking with scientists and people that know about it. So one night I packed my bags and I drove to Santa Cruz, California. There I sat down with the CEO and founder of SC Labs. I decided to record it for my own personal use. Upon finding this information, I decided to go speak with more people.
So I usually like to start with THC when we're talking about cannabis. And the reason being is because everybody knows about THC. Everybody knows it does something. Some people think it does bad stuff. Some people think it does good stuff. What does it really do, and why does it really matter to us? The reason why it matters is because the THC is almost structurally identical to a neurotransmitter that we have in our body. The neurotransmitter is part of the endocannabinoid system, which helps maintain balance, homeostasis in our organisms. This has been around evolutionarily for since well before humans were around. So it's part of evolution to help balance different systems, including the immune system, the nervous system, the metabolism, endocrine, and this is to help animals go from one environment to another. So you can see if you were in a marsh and then you move to a desert, you'd have to change your immune system, your metabolism. A lot of those would have to be changed. So this helps. This is like a master system to help control them. Okay. So what's very important about these neurotransmitters, the way the neurotransmitter works is you have a chemical that binds to a receptor and it activates the nerve. Okay. Now these receptors are throughout the body. They surround the brain and they also are in the peripheral system. So the cannabinoids exist in two forms, and that's important. They exist in the raw form, and they exist in the form after you heat them. Some people call it the decarboxylated form. How those two forms differ is the activated or heated form can pass through the blood-brain barrier and get to the brain, so it can have mental effects. The raw cannabis usually doesn't if it's in the acidic form. it's not fat soluble enough to cross the blood-brain barrier. So some people will actually medicate with products made out of raw cannabis. Now, once you heat the cannabinoids and they can cross the blood-brain barrier, then we have two major cannabinoids. We have the THC and the CBD. How those two differ is the THC is psychoactive, means it activates the mind. CBD is, in practicality, what CBD would be determined to be a psychocalming, would be called a psychocalming. Normal ratios of THC to CBD are about 21 parts THC to 1 part CBD. Now, when you raise the amount of CBD in the ratio, you feel less psychoactive. So when you mix the psychocalming with the psychoactive, the net effect will depend on what the ratio is. As you raise the CBD up, eventually at about a 1-to-1 ratio, you stop feeling the THC. So a lot of people that want to medicate without a high will use a 1-to-1 ratio. So the cannabis plant makes the cannabinoids. There's approximately 100 of them. It also makes the terpenes. So the plant makes the same two molecules, or the same two class of molecules. Now, when these cannabinoids are interacting with the receptors and you have the terpenes with them, the terpenes will change the way you react. So what this does is you can see all the possible combinations you have, all the possible with 100 cannabinoids, with all these terpenes, with the other chemicals that are involved, flavonoids. We have a lot of possibilities. So what we do is to try to organize that. Is we organize these plants into 3 different categories. We organize them into the indicas, hybrids, and sativas. Where do those categories come from? Traditionally, there are 2 species of cannabis we use. There's actually 3 species, but only 2 of them we traditionally use. The cannabis indica, which have traditionally been called the body high, because they give people a body-focused, calm feeling. So if you think of indica, you want to think of dull, down, lower, slowed, reduce. Good for anxiety, reduce anxiety. Good for pain, dull pain, lower pain. Good for insomnia, calm. Problem with indica effects, they can make people depressed. Okay? Sativas, on the other hand, were the ones that people used to call the head high, cerebral uplifting. When you think of the sativas, you would think of elevate, lift, raise, enhance, higher. They're typically used for depression, lethargy, and attention deficit. The side effect of too much is paranoia and anxiety and panic attacks. And then hybrids are a cross between the two, if you have some effects of both. They're all hybrids now. They've all been hybridized. What does that mean to patients? What that means to patients is typically indicas are for pain and sativas are not good for pain because sativas tend to enhance. But if you have a sativa strain that has indica genetics for pain, you can get an uplifting, good for depression, but good for pain. Normal THCs are about 15 or 20%. Normal CBDs are less than 1%. So you can get a THC of like 15% in an indica, hybrids, or sativa. If it's in an indica, it's going to make you calm, body heavy. If it's in a hybrid, you're going to be neutral depending on how much is indica and how much is sativa. And if it's in a sativa, it's going to tend to wake you up. Any type of cannabis can be used in multiple different ways. The only one that can't be used in every single way is the acidics, the raw cannabis. Why is that? Because if you heat it, it converts. So the acidics can only be used in processes that don't involve heating, so it can't be smoked. Okay, juicing, they do a lot of edibles, that type stuff. Now the other ways to medicate. The first one I always tell people to be aware of is topicals. You can put it directly on where there's pain, and you can make that out of acidics. You can make it out of THC, CBD combinations, indicas, hybrids. What I recommend with topicals is I haven't been able to figure out why one topical work on one person and not work on another person. So the only way I recommend topicals is try samples. And if you find a sample that's wonderful, then go ahead and do it. Now the problem with topicals is if you use a lot of topicals, you can't absorb some of it and you could actually get impaired, especially if there's a lot of indica effects. So I tell people, if you're going to use topicals, get used to them before you do them anyplace else. You can always use ones made out of the acidics, out of the raw cannabis, and you don't have to worry about that. That's great. Okay. Other ways to medicate. So everybody knows about the smoking. Okay. Other options are the vape pens, which have a vapor cartridge filled with like a hash oil. There's also vaporizers that just heat the cannabis. Okay, so any kind of inhalation is immediate. You feel immediately, peaks in about 15 minutes and lasts about 45 minutes to about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Can go out to 3 hours possibly, okay? Other methods to medicate are lozenges in the cheek. Those take about 15 minutes to a half an hour. They last about 3 to 6 hours. Under the tongue, sublingual, could be a tincture, which would be a liquid alcohol or glycerin. It could be an oil. It could be a dissolving strip. It could be a candy. Those take about 15 minutes to take effect. They last about 1 to 4 hours. So there's lots of options. Okay, why would a person pick one option of another? Depending on how fast you want to start and how long you want to last. The edibles take anywhere from 20 minutes to 2 hours to take effect, and they last 4 to 12 hours. So if you get an edible, the first thing you want to do is make sure it's what you want. And the second thing you want to make sure you got the right dose. So typical dose for a new patient is about 5 to 15 milligrams based on weight. I always recommend that people with edibles split the dose when they start. I recommend they split the dose all the time. I typically split my dose. It's way more comfortable. You can get a higher dose if you do 2 peaks and split it by at least an hour. But most of the problems with edibles are people eat too much and they don't wait full 2 hours. Yeah. Well, you can be sick, barfing. It can be really bad. So like a lot of times people with pain issues that can't get through the night, a lot of times edibles is the only way you're going to get through the night. The other thing about the edibles is that when you do an edible, the form of the THC is converted in the liver before it gets to the brain. So what does that do? It gives you a little bit more indica, like a little more body feeling. Okay, so if you don't want to get high, and the high is just the psychoactive, that's just the activation of the mind. If you don't want your mind activated, you can just take enough CBD to prevent that. Why don't I recommend pure CBD? I only recommend pure CBD if there's a social reason for it, like a child where you just don't want to give them THC because they're a child. But cannabinoids CBD almost always works better with THC added. For pain, I see people come in day out saying, I tried CBD, didn't work. I don't know why, because you need a little THC, and then they come back, it works now. The CBD does not bind to the receptors. It doesn't bind to the CB1 or the CB2 receptors. The THC does bind. The CBD has some peripheral effects. It interferes with the enzyme that breaks down the anandamide, so you get higher anandamide levels. It has a couple of other effects, but the best effect is when the THC is bound to the receptor and the CBD gets on it, you get a double pain relief effect. There's a lot of people that make a lot of claims in this industry. A lot of people don't really understand the science also. That cannabis enhances everything else you do. So if somebody's taking a little ibuprofen, it's going to be way better. The ibuprofen is going to work way better. If somebody takes a little Tylenol, so they might even not realize that the benefit of the cannabis. That's why I tell people, I'm a physician, so I tell people conventional medicine is okay, working with cannabis is okay. I try to incorporate all of them together. And I think that it's, really irresponsible for some people to tell people to stop their blood pressure medicines and use marijuana. I mean, some people in the industry are really giving us a lot of problems. I think with cannabis you can treat about 80% of what a normal general practitioner treats, if you know how to use it. So if anybody gives me a condition, I can tell them all different ways to medicate for it. One precaution I like to tell people about CBD is that a lot of CBD comes from hemp, okay? And a lot of that hemp now is coming from China. So essentially a lot of the stuff they're selling is grown in China, manufactured there, it's crystallized and sent over here. There's no quality control, there's nobody checking it at the border, and then it's going into products that are not tested. So a lot of the stuff out there, I tell people to be very cautious, only deal with people that are legitimate. And typically, if people are doing CBD, I'd rather have them do CBD from marijuana grown here by people we know.
When it comes to cannabis testing, there's a few different tests that patients and consumers can look to better understand the quality of product that they're going to purchase, to make sure that it's clean and safe, but also to understand what active chemicals are in it, so they can understand how to appropriately use the medicine. And so as far as lab testing goes, at SC Laboratories, we provide a variety of different tests. We test for the phytochemical content of cannabis, which are terpenes and cannabinoids. So cannabinoids are things like THC, THCA, CBD, CBDA. All these are different compounds which have very different effects. THC is actually the only main psychoactive part of cannabis. So for patients and consumers not looking for the psychoactive effects, they can look to THCA and CBDA for the anti-inflammatory effects of cannabis that are non-toxic and can completely replace the need for people taking things like ibuprofen and Motrin and stuff. And then they could also look to CBD, cannabidiol, for all the anti-anxiety, pain killing, all the other amazing medicinal benefits of it. But THC itself is actually the only really main psychoactive part. And so, through identifying from a testing lab, what the active THC content or CBD content is in a strain, patients and consumers alike can know how to accurately use that. That's kind of an example of how the lab results can help people make better informed decisions about how they're taking their cannabis medicine, from eating it in small microdose amounts, so that you can properly, almost like priming the pump. You're getting your endocannabinoid system, building up a tolerance for THC or for these other cannabinoids, so that you set it up right and develop the right type of relationship with cannabis. So the other aspect of testing that patients and consumers can look to help judge the quality of medicine they're taking is, whether or not it's been tested for pesticides or fungicides, whether or not it's been tested for different microbiological impurities to make sure that there's not any type of pathogenic bacteria or fungus on there that might not be good for us. So with testing in general, patients can, look to THC and CBD levels tested to, again, better help make informed decisions about what they're trying to treat or what type of effect they're trying to get. And then they can look to the different quality assurance or quality control tests that are offered, so that they can, have confidence that the brand they're purchasing and supporting is doing their due diligence to make sure they're bringing the highest quality product to market, making sure it's free of any type of, pathogenic microbes or concerning pesticides. So cannabinoids like THC and CBD, they're hydrophobic, not hydrophilic. So, a lot of things you can just, combine with water or propylene glycol or vegetable glycerin, and it'll just completely blend and emulsify and stay kind of blended, but the problem with cannabinoids like THC and CBD, when people are trying to take them and combine them into a carrier, say like PG or VG, unless there was some, higher level process to where they fully emulsified and homogenized the cannabinoids into the oil or into the extract, into the PG or VG. If that doesn't happen, then there's always going to be some type of separation. So separation is typically indicative that the company that is making it doesn't necessarily have it together, and they're just basically trying to blend, CBD or THC into an oil, but haven't really put a whole lot of deep research and development into how to properly make the product. There's a lot of claims out in the market these days, unfortunately, because there's not a lot of regulation. There's a lot of subpar products on the market that aren't necessarily tested or effective, and there's a lot of claims stating that they are. So what is full spectrum? So full spectrum is, is like the full extraction of the essential oils that are on cannabis, to include the cannabinoids, to include the terpenes. Now, when it comes to CBD, there's a lot of people these days are finding like a CBD isolate, and so a CBD isolate essentially is taking a full spectrum cannabinoid profile and essentially turning it into a concentrated extract, and then putting it through a process known as like fractional distillation, where you fraction off and separate every compound from each other. So then you have just a CBD isolate, which can test up to 95-98% total CBD, which is really high. But what does that mean? That doesn't necessarily mean it's better. That just means that's the pharmaceutical approach, because you're taking a single molecule and you're isolating it and you're super concentrating it. And so people are like, oh, CBD crystal, then just like load that in the vape pen, right? Not right, because when it comes down to it, so much of the magic in cannabis and how much it's able to benefit or treat such a wide variety of different disorders or diseases or conditions, so much comes from that symphony of all the other compounds, and that's the whole plant medicine, because if you just, we're no better than the pharmaceutical industry, if we're just trying to take a single part of it and concentrate it and separate it and then deliver that as a medicine. That's the pharmaceutical approach towards it. It's not to say that distillate or crystal CBD is bad. It's just not the full plant spectrum, and so when it comes down to like treating certain conditions, right? I'm sure you've heard that CBD is really effective to treat pediatric epilepsy. Kids, with Dravet syndrome will have, up to 100 seizures a day, and no traditional medicines that they take work, and they just keep having seizures, and it devastates families. But this whole community of patients has found, through kind of trial and error, essentially, that these certain CBD profiles, if you've heard of Charlotte's Web, AC/DC, like Valentinex, the Love, these strains, they exhibit this certain full extract or full profile in certain strains like AC/DC and Charlotte's Web, where it's 22-to-1 CBD to THC. So it's a ratio of CBD to THC. So even though there's a tiny amount of THC and there's a huge amount of CBD, that synergy between the presence of those two compounds is enough to completely stop kids from having seizures. But if you were to give a kid with Dravet, like a pure CBD isolate distillate that doesn't have any THC or terpenes or whatever, it can in certain cases give them seizures worse. And so much of the understanding of the endocannabinoid system, which is this natural system that we have in our body, this endogenous system that's internal, that is working all day, every day. The whole purpose of the endocannabinoid system is to balance and to restore homeostasis and bring us back to balance. Like throughout the day, you get stressed, you get sick, you get tired, you get, it's like you have all these systems at work, releasing all these compounds, these endogenous compounds. Well, the endocannabinoid system is also releasing compounds all through the day, but it's helping to bring this guy back to balance, bring this guy back to balance. And so it's like, it has a major effect in like, the way our body processes stress and hunger and pain and inflammation. So one of the reasons why cannabis has shown to treat so many different types of disease and disorders is because whenever you have the right ratio between CBD to THC or THCA and CBDA, you can all of a sudden treat anything. And a good example of that would be, so say the Charlotte's Web, it's a 22-to-1, really high CBD, really low THC. It's super effective to treat, pediatric epilepsy. It's that type of ratio of CBD is also incredibly effective to give to people with autism, any type of mental health disorder, from paranoid schizophrenia, bipolar, to anxiety, veterans with post-traumatic stress, any human being that's gone through trauma, and any type of post-traumatic stress from, sexual trauma or, from a really gnarly wreck, these types of things are treated really well. These types of conditions are treated really well with CBD. But if you were to give that 22-to-1, that's so effective for these conditions to, one of the 60 million Americans with chronic pain, it wouldn't do anything. But if you then give them like a, higher level of THC to balance out the ratio, where it's like a 1-to-1 CBD to THC, say like 10% CBD, 10% THC, all of a sudden that can crush out multiple sclerosis. That can completely like eliminate a lot of neurologic pain from fibromyalgia or any type of chronic pain. So when it really comes down to, I think a lot of the alchemy in cannabis and how we use it, comes down to a further understanding of our endocannabinoid system, which science and medical institutions are kind of publishing, new information every day about it. But it's us further understanding the system and how we can use cannabis to almost like biohack this system to work optimally. And so in certain conditions and cases, higher CBD, low THC, in certain conditions, more balanced CBD, THC, and in other conditions, high THC, low CBD. But ultimately, because cannabis, CBD, THC, they're not cure-alls. When you start to like get precise with, understanding the ratio and the relationship of different cannabinoids to others and how you can kind of, try it out and treat and see how it works, you can come to understanding that, it kind of is a cure-all. Once you figure out how to accurately blend different aspects of the full plant. If we can take, our health into our own hands, and if we can correct our diet, which is like the #1 thing that can help you get ahead of any type of disease or disorder, and then we can understand how to consciously use cannabis to interact with our unique system, so that we can achieve healing. Cannabis is non-toxic. It's one of the smartest ways from a harm reduction standpoint that a patient, a consumer can take, their own health into their own hands. THC and CBD are, the two main compounds in cannabis that people know and love and appreciate. But, there's these other cannabinoids like THCA and CBDA, which are the raw versions. So THCA is the raw, unheated version of delta-9 THC, which is the psychoactive one. And then CBDA is the raw plant cannabinoid that the plant produces, and then when it's heated, it converts to CBD. But in their own standalone form, without heat applied, when they stay THCA or CBDA, they actually are much more powerful anti-inflammatories than either CBD or THC combined. Because with cannabis, there's all these amazing compounds that are so kind of underutilized and understood. And every day science publications are coming out to show how amazing all these compounds are for, treating cancer, treating epilepsy, treating, any type of condition. But when you look at inflammation, how many people, family members in your life do you know that have arthritis or rheumatoid arthritis, some type of autoimmune condition, that end up taking, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen and Motrin and Tylenol every day in like horse pill 1,000 milligram amounts. It's like, that's, over time, these non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs completely destroy your kidneys and your liver, and and ultimately cause a lot of new conditions that you then need to take medications for. You can take cannabis all day, because you have like, this rheumatoid arthritis, or you have gout, or you have whatever, and that's doing a great job to treat the condition, but you have to look at the system holistically and why that condition's there. Diet in combination with a healthy daily dose of cannabinoids, whether that's THC, CBD, what have you, is kind of essentially, I think, the future of how we just live a healthy, disease-free life, and experience maximum wellness for our own abilities. THC is a partial CB1 and CB2 receptor agonist. THC partially binds to both CB1 and CB2. So as far as a utilitarian cannabinoid, THC is pretty amazing because it can bind to essentially any of your main receptors, whether you smoke it, whether you're ingesting it into your gut, whether you're topically applying it. But for what it's worth, which is really interesting, CBD doesn't even bind to your CB1 or CB2 receptor. It more acts on your serotonergic receptor system than it does on your endocannabinoid system, which is a trip. And I'm sure there's a lot we don't know still, but it is known that just alone CBD doesn't bind to CB1 or CB2. But what's really interesting is whenever CBD is present with THC, the presence of CBD, it changes the way that that THC binds to CB1 or CB2. So it's like if THC alone normally binds to CB1 or CB2 in a certain way, whenever CBD is combined with it, all of a sudden THC binds in these whole new novel ways to that receptor, which might be a big reason why it's like all of a sudden more effective for treating this certain disordered condition. And so it's all about the ratio and the relationship of how much these compounds are together, because then it all of a sudden changes the certain receptor binding affinities that THC might have to CB1 or CB2, or the way that CBD is then interacting with the serotonergic receptor system. I think it's important to understand that CBD is cannabis, THC is cannabis. They're the same plant. And to consider the only thing that distinguishes hemp from cannabis is just the fact that it's a legal distinction, that hemp contains less than 0.3% THC. So therefore, it's high in CBD or something else like CBC or CBG. Most hemp strains are CBD. I think it's important to broaden your horizon you know, and it's like, how can cannabis work for me? Because, you know, as much benefit as people can gain from CBD, you know, THC is equally as important of a component. I think the most important part about being a new patient, you know, especially people like veterans, like myself, but vets that have post-traumatic stress, they're so, like, people that have never used cannabis before are so hypersensitive that even the tiniest amount of THC can make them so negatively high and psychoactively affected that they might write it off and be like, I'm not doing that again. The tiniest amount of THC, once you smoke, goes through your blood-brain barrier, binds to these receptors in your brain. You know, the first time you do it, every receptor in your brain might get lit off, you know, and so you're hypersensitive, you know, but then after you do it every day, every couple days, you know, in similar doses, you know, you eventually start to like pretty much build a tolerance, you know, and down-regulate kind of the amount of receptors that are being lit off each time you smoke. I think it's important not to count THC out. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, CBD is all I want. This high makes me feel really negative, really, you know, social anxiety or awkward. You know, and I don't want to feel high. You know, so many, you know, people like I know in my life, my parents, you know, kind of elder people I know, they don't want to get high. You know, they're kind of scared of that. You know, and rightfully so, because they might have had an experience where they ate a big edible and blasted and had to go hide under the bed, you know, or go to the hospital even. And so I think, you know, by responsibly, you know, kind of developing your endocannabinoid system and the relationship that you have with cannabis, you know, it's like by doing it properly, you know, working with CBD and then microdosing THC, and over time, as you're ready to increase your THC dose, you know, you can basically mitigate a lot of the potential negative effects that THC might have in creating paranoia or social anxiety. And once your system's primed right, you can open up your abilities with cannabis plant to kind of, you know, take any type of compound that it has in a way that's, you know, most effective for you. One of the most used little propaganda bits, you know, that the government has used up to this point, you know, saying, you know, associating cannabis and cannabis use as a gateway drug to like cocaine and heroin, you know, I think is it's like a red herring. That's like total fallacy, you know. And if anything, you know, personally, from all that I've experienced from working within the science of cannabis for the last 7 years, having grown cannabis before then, you know, I also sit and serve on the board of directors of an organization called WHAM, which is the Women's and Men's Alliance for Medical Marijuana, one of California's first dispensaries. They were partial authors of Proposition 215, which made cannabis legal back in 1996 in California for medical use. And WHAM primarily works with low-income, sick, poor, vulnerable people. And from the experience that I have with cannabis, I would say it's a gateway drug, but not to hard drugs. It's a gateway drug to consciousness. It's a gateway drug to expanding your awareness about who you are and how you can heal your body. You know, it's a gateway drug towards becoming organic, you know, and towards like cutting out the shit foods that we eat and veggies that are covered in pesticides. You know, I think it's a gateway drug to getting patients and consumers to possibly be open to trying other types of sacred plant medicines that have been around the earth for thousands of years.
The most important thing with CBD is that you get a quality CBD. There's a lot of different products that are on the market, and some of them are out there just to make a quick sell. You know, they got great marketing, everything looks really beautiful and this, that, and the other, but they're spending all their money on the marketing and not a whole lot of money on research and development. But then there's other companies out there that don't really care about being the biggest guy on the market. They just care about the quality product that they're putting out and being able to help people. You know, a lot of their products they may donate to certain organizations or, you know, help provide relief to certain people that may not otherwise be able to have access to those products. But the bottom line still comes down to what is it that's actually being distributed into the marketplace. So what we typically look for is we go all the way to the very beginning, where the product's grown at, what the legalities of it are. We look at how the farmers are farming the product. You know, are they using pesticides? Are they not using pesticides? Is it a non-GMO product? Or are they genetically modifying it? We look at all these different things, and that all goes into playing a part of how our selection process it takes place. Quality for us is the absolute #1 priority. That, and then I can't even say it's #2 because it's still #1 as well, but customer service. You know, we feel like you have to have a quality product and you have to have that customer service that goes along with it, because it's a rather new field for a lot of people. They're looking for information, and a lot of the information that's out there is kind of misleading information, because the industry that we're in, everybody has different agendas. You know, like our particular product has absolutely no THC in it. We don't want it to have any THC in it. We're going for more of a demographic of people that are just looking for some type of relief, whether it be from anxiety, whether it be from headaches, whether it be from the fibromyalgia, whatever the case may be, but they don't want to get high off of it. They want to be able to function on a day-to-day basis. So that's the market that we're in, and so whenever we're sourcing product, that's what we're specifically looking for too. We're looking at the test results that are coming back and making sure that it is a non-GMO product. It doesn't have any kind of pesticides in it. It doesn't have a bunch of minerals in it that are non-beneficial minerals, and that it's got the beneficial aspects of it in terms of the right cannabinoids in there that actually do what they need to do. Then you get into things like how terpenes affect the body. You know, you get into if it's just a regular CBD product that doesn't have any type of modified terpenes in it, it may not get through the blood-brain barrier as well, or it may not stick to the receptors as well when it's going across. Whereas you can do a little bit of modification to the terpenes, and you can actually get a better absorption rate on the receptors as it's going through. So some of these companies don't understand how all that works, and so what they do in the process is, once again, they'll import a product in that may only have a purity or potency of 25%, advertise it being 250 milligrams, 100 milligrams, whatever the case may be, and in reality the customer may be only getting 25 milligrams because they're not testing it out properly, or they're modifying how it's tested. And that's why you see a lot of products on the market that'll be like 1,500 milligrams, 2,000 milligrams, 5,000 milligrams. Just like a vitamin, your body can only absorb so much on a daily basis, and the rest of it's just going to go to waste. But whenever you see those types of products out there, it's typically because their 100 milligram, their 250 milligram, or their 500 milligram isn't effective because it's not a quality CBD. So they have to load it up just to get any kind of results off of it. That's one of the reasons why the most you'll ever see us do, for the most part, is going to be like a 750 milligram, because really nobody needs more than the potency that allows you to be able to have on a daily basis. So if it's done right. So that's kind of a little bit about quality, and that quality starts from the very time that plant goes into the ground, how it's grown, how it's processed, what type of extraction process are they using. So these are questions that people need to ask whenever they're buying this. It's not wise for somebody just to go into a store and look and see a pretty label and go, oh my God, it's got 2,000 milligrams in there, this thing's got to be awesome. Doesn't work that way. So they need to know the questions to ask the retailers or whoever it is that they're buying it from. Where's this product sourced out of? Is it a domestic product? Is it an imported product? Where's it imported out of? How is it processed? They use a CO2 extraction process. Do they use a liquid chromatography process? And those are things that people just aren't acclimated to asking at a retailer. And so what we do is we try to help. Our goal is to help people understand what it is that they're purchasing, how to use it. Do you need to use a quarter of a dropper a day? Is it better to use it 3 times a day, twice a day? Do you need to use a half a dropper a day? We want to help people to understand the education that's behind it.
My name is Kandice Hawes Lopez, and I'm the director of Orange County NORML. It's a chapter of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. I've been in this position now for 14 years. I started back in 2003 when I was a victim of marijuana prohibition. I had a small amount of marijuana on me and I lost my financial aid and I had to leave school for a bit of time. But that actually, one of the worst things that ever happened to me in my life, put me on the path I think that I'm supposed to be on. And I was able to organize a group of people who felt the same way and found a nonprofit organization. And we've been doing work here in Orange County ever since. Orange County NORML holds multiple monthly meetings for different groups of people, regular people that want to get involved or get educated, another group for seniors, and then also a group for the industry that we call the business and industry group. That's more for the collective owners and people in the industry, trying to get them to share best practices and kind of raise the standard of medical marijuana delivery, I guess, and procurement, I guess, in here in Orange County. People from any state can go to National NORML's website at NORML.org and they can find their local chapter. They can find information about their marijuana laws. They can also send pre-written letters to their representatives that NORML has put together. You just put in your address and it'll tell you these are your representatives, and do you want to talk to them about medical marijuana? Do you want to talk to them about, different kinds of things? And you can choose, and then you just, it's really simple and really easy. So that's a way that you can become active. Additionally, if you wanted to get active, believe it or not, there's a lot of people that feel the same way. And that's how I started my chapter. It takes just one person kind of putting themselves out there like, hey, I'm going to organize a meeting for people that want to talk about reforming marijuana laws in this city. I'm going to meet at this pizza place, and try to put that on meetup.com or any kind of social media outlet. And you'd really be surprised how many people show up. And then you can do fun fundraisers like we do 420 bingo, and we, smoke and socialize, and people win pipes and stuff like that. And we raise money to fund our chapter. So it's really easier than people think to get involved and to make a change. Who would have thought, a girl starting a chapter when she was 21 years old would later on go to change the laws in the most powerful city and one of the most powerful counties and states in the whole country, So anybody can do it, it just kind of takes a little bit of courage. I think one of my specialties in the industry is doing local voter initiatives, going through the process of that. What are the steps to petition your local government if your city council members have just said, no, we're not going to do it. We're scared, of our citizens responding, or I just don't believe in it. You can go around them, and it's not that hard. You can form your own political action group, same thing as a campaign like the Republicans or the Democrats, and you can be, an impactful, body of citizens that want to get a law changed. It's not that hard, and so I've helped a couple groups do that, and I did ours in Santa Ana. But I think another thing that is important for people and patients to read up on, besides just the laws, is the different kinds of ways that you can use cannabis. I think a lot of people just, think about smoking, or even edibles, but there is other ways like transdermal patches and sublinguals, and suppositories is growing a lot here in California, especially with the seriously ill. So yeah, I find lately that I've been doing the most research on these new types of delivery methods. I'm surprised all the time when I walk into a dispensary and I see something new and I'm like, I never even thought of that. Why didn't I think of that, So it's really cool to see when the market is allowed to flourish, the kind of ideas that we come up with and the different kinds of delivery methods that are better for patients.
I started this whole thing in December of 1999 when I got flesh-eating bacteria. How did I get that? I got that from somebody I brought chicken soup to. And it got into, that type of bacteria is so small that it can go through the pores of your skin. And that's how they figure it got into me. So it got into my pores and got into my lower abdomen through the bloodstream, and I almost died. Got to the hospital, and the only way to get rid of necrotizing fasciitis is to cut it out surgically. So by the time we finished a 5-hour operation to get it out, they wheeled me out and they told David, we did what we can, but I don't know if that was enough. So I was in the hospital for about 4 months with that. We call my home away from home. And the food's not bad. But we were there, and David would, when I got home, David would do my bandages and talk about love. Love is when your husband is up to his wrist, inside of my body, changing my bandages. And it's very painful. It was very painful. So they gave me OxyContin, and they started me on pretty high doses of OxyContin. And they kept upping it and upping it and upping it. And when I said, when can I get off of this? The doctor looked at me and said, why would you want to get off of this? Why would you want to be in pain? You know, this is it the rest of your life. And I'm like, this is not working for me. So David says, you know, you should try medical marijuana. I'm a type 1 diabetic, so I'm prone to a lot of different diseases, including blindness. I am blind legally. And I have a disease called sarcoidosis, which is a disease that it's not cancerous, but it looks cancerous. It causes gangliomas. And I have it right now in my lungs and my skin, which is the largest organ in your body. That it doesn't hurt that much, but the thing is that the cure is to be on antiretroviral medications, which means I have no immune system. About 6 years ago, I lost my leg. That was separate from the flesh-eating bacteria. It was caused. I had broken my ankle, and they tried fixing my ankle 6 different operations, and finally they thought they had gotten everything and everything worked, and my body rejected the titanium. The little screws started coming out of my legs, and they said, okay, we need to take the legs. So they did. And so that was more time in the hospital and more pain pills. And because of the medication that I was on so much of, it made it so that I couldn't get out of pain. And the medication itself created its own pain.
Wow.
That's what Oxy does. We finally got off of it using the marijuana. My doctor, my primary care doctor, was very happy I was using it. Although, being a Hogue doctor, quote unquote, she was not allowed to recommend it.
Just because of the institution that she worked for, she wasn't allowed to recommend.
She was not allowed to.
Although she knew.
Although she sends me patients. Usually the people that she gives me are older
clientele.
Yeah. So answering the questions for them, every question they need to answer, because a lot of them were born in the generation where, you know, marijuana bad, marijuana gateway drug, marijuana, you know, marijuana will lead to, you know, heroin, although that isn't true.
So, is marijuana a gateway drug?
No.
No.
A gateway to what?
Gateway to happiness.
Yeah, gateway to happiness.
Yeah, I mean, a gateway to get out of pain. Yeah.
And a gateway to.
But not a gateway. Not a gateway to other drugs. No.
When I first started taking the CBD, it was for my anxiety, and I get a really bad flight anxiety. And so it got to a point where I travel a lot for work, and I like literally couldn't get on another airplane. I just couldn't do it. And so my doctor prescribed me Xanax. And so that's kind of a rough spot for me because I'm in recovery, and I'm really protective of my sobriety. So I was looking for other alternatives, and someone suggested CBD. And so I was a little leery about it, because I wanted to make sure that I got the product that didn't have THC in it. And so I found the CBD isolate, and it's worked amazing for me. And so I can take a dropper full, I take it sublingually right before I fly, and within 10 minutes, my whole body's like, and it's so amazing. And then I don't like pass out and drool on myself on the plane. And, you know, even on short flights, I couldn't take the Xanax because I can't like get off an hour flight and fly. You know, it worked when I went, you know, on long trips. But so the CBD has been really effective for that for me. And I've stuck with the isolates for that. And so I've played around with a couple brands, and the 2 brands that I've used, I've done a lot of research on getting lab results first and looking into, you know, what they're doing and backing up their information because it's important to me. And so it's been extremely effective, and I love the fact that I don't have to rely on, you know, a benzo that's, you know, risky for my sobriety, but also just knocks me out, like out of the loop. I don't like feeling loopy and groggy, and, you know, I can take the CBD, it takes the edge off. But then I'm still like able to function and have a conversation and get out of the car and drive. And so I have situational anxiety too that I'll take it for. And I'm so excited that I found this product. And then the other thing that I just recently started taking it for is I have IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome. Not fun. And it's been an issue that's plagued me for a long time. And so I started seeing a chiropractor about a year ago, and I take some supplements for my stomach, and it's helped my flare-ups reduce by like probably 75%, but I still get flare-ups, and it's really inconvenient when I'm in the middle of something and all of a sudden like, oh great, here we go, you know, and I have to run to the bathroom. And not only that, but it also makes my head really foggy, and just overall I just feel really toxic and sick. So I've seen a lot of people that take the CBD for pain, but there's so many other things that it's effective for. So for me, the anxiety and my irritable bowel syndrome, which is, you know, it's embarrassing, it's messy, it's awful, and I'm so grateful that I found another solution to help me be productive. Yeah, I'm busy. I'm a mom. I'm a business owner. I'm an advocate. You know, I'm busy all the time, and having an illness that will crop up at any minute and stop me in my tracks is not fun. So say I'd have a flare-up and I get to go take my daughter to gymnastics, but I can't get out of bed.
Right.
You know, and then I have to inconvenience my husband and have him stop what he's doing so that he can take her. And of course, you know, he takes her every other week, so, you know, but she gets sad when I'm not there. She, you know, it disrupts everyone's life. So being able to have a solution through the CBD, like I still get to be a present mom and take my kids to their, you know, gymnastics and sporting events and participate in their life, you know, field trips. And it's things where I can't plan in advance around my IBS. So being able to have my CBD with me, and if I feel a flare-up coming on, I can take it and it doesn't happen. And it's really, I mean, it's amazing. Like, I don't get stopped dead in my tracks anymore. I get to continue living all the different areas of my life to the fullest.
In 2011, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, IDC stage 1B, which meant that I had a large tumor and a small amount of the cancer had come out. So, and it didn't reach my lymph nodes, but there's still chances there that it can be hiding in my body. You know, it can come back. And I had to have a double mastectomy with reconstruction. And I went through 6 weeks of radiation. 2 of my doctors said I needed chemo, and 2 said no, based upon the size of the tumor. And I forgot. I get emotional, I'm sorry, because it takes me back to those days, you know, and that's hard. Yeah, it makes me want to cry. So I chose not to do chemo. And I just went through a series of medication, tamoxifen, and some infusions. And while I was doing all that, I had reconstruction surgery. And all of it took about a year for everything to work out to look semi-normal now. When I was going through my surgeries, my doctor had, the first surgery, I had a lot of morphine, and when I came home, they gave me like just batches of oxycodone. And I took one, and it was just, it was really harsh on me. I was crying, I couldn't eat, I was sad and depressed, and my husband was like, you can't take these medicines. So my husband went and got me cannabis candy bars. So I would eat those, and I wouldn't feel as much pain. I could laugh, I could eat, and I slept. And that was the best thing ever, because in 2 weeks I had healed so fast that my doctors were just like amazed, and it was because of my attitude adjustment versus, medicine they gave me and cannabis, which helped me lighten my, I can't think right now.
Yeah, it's fine.
Help me lighten, I can't even think. Just help my quality of life. It made me look at my kids and realize that, I want to be here for them, and I don't want to be sad and looking sick, So, we laughed. I was able to help my son with his homework, we watched TV together, and they saw that I wasn't sad, That's what cannabis did for me, and still, even, when I go to sleep, it always weighs heavy on my mind, am I going to get it again? But it helps me relax.
At any time did you say, okay, this high is cool, but like maybe try something that like doesn't give me high, like CBD or something?
Yes, CBDs too. Yes, because it is good for cancer. It helps breast cancer and many cancers. So, yes, I do take some tinctures. Yes.
Do you still continue to use medicinal marijuana and CBD?
Yes, I do. I do for quality of life. I still have lots of pain, and from having cancer, I have, a lot of things going on from the effects of the treatment that I've gone through. So yes, I do for quality of life. I would say though, it allowed me to relax my body, in order for me to be able to exercise, because your whole chest has been removed and reconstructing in the process. So at those times, it was like hard for me to reach or to hold anything. So it would make me feel relaxed so that I could like pick up a pan, I could like learn to stretch my arms out again. It relaxed my body, it relaxes me so that I could do the things, and every day I could do more, I choose to keep my mind, I choose to keep my mind in a happy place. You know what I mean? I don't dwell on the bad and what's gonna happen, So I feel it just makes me bring out myself even more, helps me.
And that's what medicinal marijuana has done for you.
Exactly. Quality of life.
That little trip changed my life forever. The knowledge and the information that I gained from it was life-changing. I went from having 3 to 4 gout attacks a month to having them once every 3 months. Maybe once every 6 months. Let's put it this way, in the past 12 months, I've had 3 attacks. None of them were severe. They were all mild attacks. Now that's a considerable change from 2016, which was 3 years ago. Simply just changing my diet, CBD on a weekly basis, has completely taken me off all the opioids and all the prescribed medications that my doctors have given me. My quality of life has gotten way better. So hopefully the information from this video can help you or someone you love, because it's definitely helped me. Now, I have a social media presence on Instagram and Facebook, sure, but one thing I don't have is a strong presence on YouTube. So I'm not doing this for subscribers, not doing this for followers, I'm not doing this for likes. Like I said, it's helped me, and hopefully it can help you. Thanks for watching.